Hello and welcome back to episode 2 of the GymCrafter podcast. My name's Tim. I'm the head gym nerd here at GymCrafter.com, the website that I built to help regular folks find answers they could trust on everything home gym, from what's a center barbell knurl to whether you need a squat rack or a full power cage and everything in between. And none of it is written by AI. And if you've searched Google in the last couple of days, you know why that's important. But let's get to today's podcast. As I'm rebuilding my own garage gym from scratch, I decided to document the process both here on the podcast, also on some YouTube videos on my channel, as well as a lot of detailed stuff over on the Instagram page. If you're not following GymCrafter over on Instagram, make sure you do that. And if you're not following me here on YouTube, make sure you hit the follow button and the like and subscribe and share and all that kind of stuff, because it really helps me get the message out to more people. And from the feedback from all of you, a lot more people need to hear this. So thank you, first of all, to the almost 800 people that watched the first episode. Usually the first 10 episodes of a podcast get 0 views, and for all of you to share the episode as many times as you did, to provide the really great feedback as often as you did, it really helped me know that this was something that was valuable to you. So I want to continue that today. And today's episode is about making space for a garage or a home gym. It's the number one concern that I hear from people. And at this point, through GymCrafter.com, I've helped thousands of people build home gyms. And I've got hundreds of emails from people with different types of questions. And one of the most common questions is, hey Tim, we'd love to build a home gym, but we just can't seem to find the space. And that narrows down to a couple of typical issues, which is either A, they really don't have a lot of space and they need to find a way to get more space in their house, or they've got enough space, but their idea of a home gym or a garage gym is just, it's too much, it's too extensive. So we're gonna cover finding space, and it's an appropriate time for me to talk about that topic, because I just finished painting my garage. I'm in the middle of laying flooring as we speak. Again, I've documented that over on the Instagram page, and you guys can see exactly where I am if you go over there. But I've gone from my own home gym being just a small patch of carpet that I cleared in my living room floor, to clearing a little corner of the garage for a set of dumbbells and an adjustable bench, to my most recent home gym, which was a squat rack, which took up about a third of the home gym of the garage, to now what I'm building is, I'd say 3/4 or more of the garage is now all going to be gym space. So same guy, same house. I've gone from being able to find just that small amount of space to being able to clear a large amount of space. So today I'm going to share some tips and tricks for you guys. And tips and tricks, I hate that term. That sounds so podcasty. I'm going to share some insights, not only for myself, but more importantly from people that I've helped along the way. Real people giving real life examples of what they've done to find space in their home for a home gym. What I'm going to cover in this particular podcast is, first of all, some overall guidelines, to just some general things to think about as you're going about making space in your home for a home gym. Clearing the space, how to actually clear it out and get rid of a lot of the stuff that maybe you don't need anymore or can find a different home. I've got some interesting advice on that and some things that have really helped me clear my space. Again, I had a garage, as you guys saw in the last video, I had a garage full of stuff that I needed to find new homes for, and I've done a pretty good job of doing that. And then just finding a space in general, like maybe you can't clear a spot in your garage, maybe it needs to be someplace else. So again, things that I've learned from other folks, things that I've learned from myself, and then at the end I'll give you an update on how my gym build is going and what's happening there. So let's get rolling. And I want to start with a reminder from the first episode, which is we talked about what are the 3 things that go into a home gym, and they're not what everybody thinks. And they're these. If you want more detail on this, go back and listen to the first episode. I cover this in depth. But number 1 is you got to find a space to train, right? You have to have room to do this. Whether that's a small space on the floor, like I said, or a large full garage gym or basement gym, you have to find a place in your home to do this. Number 2, you have to have some type of resistance. Resistance training is a non-negotiable. I do get pushback on that sometimes, but that's a hard red line for me. If you're gonna be training and you're gonna be exercising, resistance training has to be part of that in some capacity. And then the third one is, and I get just as much pushback on this, is you gotta have some type of an indoor cardio solution, because it's not always gonna be nice enough to do cardio outside. And yes, you need to do cardio and resistance training. This debate of one or the other, which one is ridiculous. You need to do both, especially if you want to be healthy. So that's an overview of what's actually in a home gym. We also talked about, in that first episode, finding your why. Okay, so you know what's part of a home gym, but why are you building one? And I talked a lot about finding your why first really directs everything else. Well, it also helps you find space. You know, if you know your why of your training, you know, if your doctor said you need to start working out and you decide to do that at home, you're not going to be real motivated to move things around your house or clear out a space or maybe get rid of some stuff that you haven't used in a while. But if you've got a really strong why and you know why you're training, all of a sudden finding space in your home becomes a whole lot easier. You know, I compare it to people that have kids, and I don't have kids, but my brother does, and I've got a lot of friends who do, and it's interesting how before the kid comes, they're always panicked. I don't have enough time for my life right now. I don't have enough space in my house right now. And all of a sudden the kid comes and boom, you've got plenty of space. You've got all this time you didn't know that you had. And granted, a lot of that is not sleeping, but the importance of the child and taking care of your kid all of a sudden creates the space in your life and the space in your home. And the same thing is true for a home gym. When you get a good why, all of a sudden a house that you thought is too small or was too small is now, you've got plenty of room, you know, because your priorities have changed. So again, back to make sure that the number one tip to finding space in your house is, if you have found your why and it's compelling, and again, go back and listen to the first episode on how to do that, then all of a sudden finding space becomes a lot easier, right? Your priorities change. So that's the first thing. Number two, and I touched on this in the first episode, is you have to understand what your home gym might look like versus what the home gym in your brain might look like, right? Like a lot of us, especially myself and a lot of the garage gym people that I follow on Instagram, you know, we want as big of a gym as possible, right? There's no such thing as too big of a gym, just a garage that's too small, right? So the gym that's in your mind might not be the one that you can fit in your house. So it's important to find a balance between those things. And then another really important overall guideline that I've learned from a lot of people is the household has to be bought in. Like if just one of you in your home has your why figured out, but the other person in the home hasn't bought into that, this isn't going to work. And I've dealt with a bunch of people where they moved forward on building a home gym while their spouse didn't. And this goes both ways. And I'm going to give you some examples from both husbands who didn't want a home gym and wives who didn't want a home gym. But in the end, if you clear space in your garage, you know, and you kind of get a begrudging buy-in from your spouse, and then you put a bunch of stuff out there, and then every time something comes up, you know, every time, you know, let's say that you're a wife who put a home gym in the garage, and you're like, hey, honey, can you fix this thing? And the response is, well, you know, if we had room in the garage for a workbench like I wanted instead of a gym, then I could. But, you know, or vice versa. Hey, where do we put this kid's stuff? Well, you know what? If we hadn't taken up the whole basement for a home gym, we'd have room to store the kid's stuff, but we don't. If you go through life after building a home gym with one person always making kind of sideways comments about how they rather wouldn't have had a home gym, your home gym's not going to work. You're going to find that you're going to sell that home gym very quickly. And I have some very disappointing emails from people who were like, you know, we tried, it's just not in the cards right now. I had to sell everything. And then I end up doing a long advice on how to sell stuff and get your money back, thank you guys. A lot of you submitted a comment that said, hey, can you cover how to sell your home gym equipment, you know, to make space maybe for new stuff. I'm selling a ton of my stuff to make space for new equipment in my home gym. So we're definitely going to touch on that. So hang on, that's for sure planned for a future episode. But the point is that not only do you have to find your why isn't going to be the same as your spouse's or significant other's why. So it's important that you're both on the same page. Even if there's different whys, having you both excited about building a home gym, again, if you've got that why in place and you're both excited, it's amazing how quickly you can both agree to get rid of certain things or park somebody's car outside or, you know, make room in the basement that used to be storage for stuff that you thought was important, but maybe now this is more important. So making sure that you have a realistic idea of what your gym's going to look like and getting the buy-in from everybody in the household and getting everybody excited are some ways that I don't know how it works, but magically that opens up space in your house. Another overall guideline tip for you is Make an effort to make the space enjoyable. You know, I'm going to give an update at the end of the episode about my gym, but something that I'm paying particular attention to is this is the first time that I've painted the whole gym a color that A, matches my brand colors, but B, that makes it kind of a fun place for me to be. I've always wanted darker walls in my gym, and I've never done that, but I've got a nice big garage. We have an episode coming up on flooring and things like that, so I'll get more in detail into that. But I put in some nice flooring that I really like, and I've got some plans for some decorative stuff to go on the walls and some things to motivate and maybe some new lighting. And all of those things make your gym more enjoyable. I just did a 5-minute Friday on lighting and a couple things you can do with your garage door. Make sure to check that out. Those are things that I would never build a gym without doing. So once you have found your space, you also need to find a way to make that space an enjoyable place to be. Again, back to having both people's buy-in. I've talked to some folks who, and myself, I use myself as an example. I used to live with somebody. They didn't want a gym anywhere in the house. So the compromise was that I would train with kettlebells and a door-mounted pull-up bar and some rings, but I had to agree to put those away out of sight after I was done using them. And that worked for a while, but it wasn't enjoyable for me. I'm literally banging my head into the coffee table. You know, I've got to worry about doing a kettlebell swing into the living room TV, and it wasn't enjoyable. So it made things harder. It made me less likely to work out. The same thing with, it took a lot of work to clear the space every time. When we're talking about finding space in your house for a home gym or a garage gym, it needs to be a dedicated space. So there's another good overall guideline for you, is it needs to be dedicated. If you have to work out by clearing the space first before you can work out, I can promise you that once your motivation fades and you're relying on self-discipline only, you're gonna stop working out. So make sure that it's a space that is enjoyable to be in, that's easy to get to, that's a permanent part of your home. Look, I firmly believe that every home should just be equipped with a home gym. Forget the 2 home offices and formal living rooms. I see a lot of houses. You know, everybody buys a house and like, well, I want 2 guest bedrooms and an office and then another home office and I want a formal living room. It's like, well, where's the gym gonna go, right? I really feel that the future of people relies on us being healthy and fit and able to deal with difficult situations, and the best way to do that, in my experience, is a home gym. So this needs to be a permanent part of your home. And again, if both people don't agree, you're gonna have a hard time agreeing on it being a permanent part of your home. But now that we've got that kind of some overall guidelines kind of set, let's talk about 2 important aspects once you've agreed that you're going to have a home gym. And they're clearing the space and finding a space. And I went back and forth on how to handle this episode, but I want to talk about how to clear the space first, because the better job you do and the better understanding you have of how to clear room in your home, the more space you can find. So it may open up some places that you weren't looking at before. For example, if you know that you've got stuff stored in your attic, stuff stored in your basement, stuff stored in your guest bedroom, and you can find a way to consolidate all of that into one place, maybe you now open up a part of the garage that you wouldn't have thought of before. So let's spend some time talking about clearing space in your home for your home gym. And I've got a couple of tips that I've used and I've leaned on really hard, and it's made what can be a hard thing a whole lot easier. If you remember, a bunch of years back, the simplicity movement, it's called voluntary simplicity or minimalism. It's still a movement that's going on, but it was people who were like, we're gonna go down to 20 pieces of clothing and 1 pair of shoes, and I thought it got a little bit extreme, but there were some guidelines that came out of that I've really held dear, and I really kind of follow these rules in my own life, and boy, did I lean on them when I cleared out my garage. Now, right now I'm sitting in my living room, so A, hopefully we have no echoes this time. I appreciate you guys bearing with the bad audio last time. But B, I literally, if I was to turn the camera around, and I'll put up some video of it, I literally am living in an episode of Hoarders right now. I've got weight benches over here and barbells over here. I mean, I've got blankets and plyo boxes behind me. My dogs are freaked out. It's been a little hectic trying to clear room in the garage. So these rules have really helped me do that, and they've helped people that I've helped do that. The number 1 rule with the bullet, and I use this probably once a year as I clear out for spring cleaning in my house, it's called the 1-year rule. I'm not talking about family pictures like you see behind me. I'm not talking about photo albums. I'm not talking about your high school yearbooks. I'm not talking about that stuff. But if you've got something in your house that you haven't touched or used or worn in a year, get rid of it. Just make it a hard and fast rule. Don't think, well, maybe someday I might down the road possibly wear this particular sweatshirt or this pair of shoes, or, the garage is a great example of that. We all end up with shelves and shelves and shelves of stuff. I have like 4 cans of WD-40, 3 cans of 3-in-1 oil, the new Barbell Rescue oil, some other stuff that I only need one of those. Like, I don't need all that stuff. I don't need 3 cans of wasp spray. I don't need the touch-up paint for my garage that the garage was 3 years ago. So as I went through my garage, I asked myself, have I touched this or used this in the last year? And if the answer was no, I got rid of it. Now, whether I sold it, gave it away, threw it out, that's a whole nother story. But if you can apply that rule and really be religious about it and be disciplined about it, it helps guide you on what you can and can't keep. And I would imagine that if you were to go through your attic, for example, I saw a funny meme the other day that said, to everybody who's still got the box to their iPad or laptop, you can go ahead and throw it out. And I'm definitely that person. I went up in my attic, and because that's where some of my garage stuff is going to go, is up in the attic. And sure enough, I had boxes from stuff that I haven't had for years. So again, if you haven't used it, you haven't touched it in the last year, get rid of it. And you will be amazed at how much space you can clear in your house using that one rule. And the attic example is my next kind of advice for clearing space. Look at places, like I've got a spot under my stairway back here that I get to through a little access panel. I've got an attic in the house that you kind of have to be Tarzan to get up into. Getting up into those spaces and clearing them out and making different areas for storage, because what happens where we normally put our gyms is typically it's in a garage or a basement. And garages and basements end up being used for storage first. So if you, A, get rid of everything in those places that you haven't touched or needed in a year, and B, you open up those spaces so that you can put more stuff in them and you can store more things. And then C, and this is from one of the people that I dealt with, and they said, what we did, they had a similar, a lot of you probably do, you've got these panels that you push up and move out of the way, and then you've got to get a ladder, and the ladder's not tall enough, you got to do like a full range dip to get up there. You guys know what I'm talking about. And I always wonder, I'm like, am I strong enough to get up there today? All they did was they put a pull down ladder. And they said once they put that pull down ladder, they said it was so easy to get up and down in the attic, they could actually use it for storage. Some people have a crawl space. My parents have a crawl space. And what they did, they bought these little mechanic rollers that you can roll, because it's probably only 4 feet tall in there and it's hard to waddle around. But once they got 2 of these little mechanic rollers, and one they just sit down on, and then the other one you put stuff on, and they can go all the way back into the crawl space because it's cement. So they can go all the way back there, and it's easy to bring stuff back, and it's a cool place for me and my nieces to race around on those carts, which is really fun. It's nice because once you make those storage spaces easier to get to, you've opened up a whole lot of opportunity to store stuff, to be more neat and organized about it. And all of a sudden, when you can move a bunch of stuff to your attic or crawl space, then all of a sudden your basement and your garage start to open up more and more. And like I mentioned at the beginning of this episode, you may be able to find a whole lot more space than you even thought you did if you use strategies like this to kind of clear that space out. The last one is, and I'm not a big fan of the storage places, the lockers that you can buy and the garages you can buy. As kind of a minimalist myself, I've put a hard and fast rule that if I can't fit it all in this house, then I certainly don't need it. Because I can almost guarantee you that if you go into almost everybody's storage lockers, they haven't touched that stuff, not only in the last year, they haven't touched that stuff in the last 5 years. It's always like, well, maybe someday we'll want to have that coffee table back in the living room, or I don't know what to do with these clothes, but I don't want to get rid of them. So you guys know, if you have storage spaces, you know exactly what I'm talking about. They're usually full of stuff you're never actually going to use, you're never actually going to need. So that's something. I want to give you another tip too that somebody gave me, one of the folks that I worked with, and I thought this was great, because they were moving, and they said, Tim, there's no quicker way to figure out what's really important to you and you need to keep than whether or not you need to move it to a new house. And for folks out there who have moved recently, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Stuff that you've hung on to for years, especially mid-packing, you go, I don't need that, because you don't want to put it in a box and move it, right? You're just tired of packing stuff up and you're tired of moving. So that's another good rule. If you don't like the 1 year rule, pretend like you're moving and go, if I was moving, would I move this or would I throw it out or give it away? That's another good way to find space in your house from some folks that I've worked with. And I've heard that more than once, and because it's true. So there's some tips on how you can clear more space in your house. And like I said, I'm gonna do an episode down the road on how to sell stuff and sell it quickly, sell it for a fair price, know what to charge for it. But look into that as well. You know, a lot of stuff you can sell. I'm funding a lot of my garage gym rebuild by selling the stuff that I wasn't using anymore. I had barbells that I hadn't touched in a year. So again, applying that rule, if I haven't lifted with that barbell in a year, I don't need that barbell anymore. So same thing with, there was a weight bench, there was some kettlebells that I hadn't used in forever, just a bunch of stuff that you can just, and fitness stuff has good resale value. Not everything does, but Facebook Marketplace, I gotta tell you, I've gotten some really quick sales at some very fair prices. So anyway, we'll do an episode on that later, but that's kind of clearing your space. Now let's talk about where you can build a gym, because I've talked an awful lot about building a gym in a garage or building a gym in your basement, but I want to think more outside the box than that for some people, because some people don't have a garage. Some people live in an apartment where they don't have a garage or a basement. Some people, you know, the basement is finished and that's where the kids play and there's just no opportunity to put a gym down there, whatever it happens to be. So I want to talk about, and these are things from people that I've worked with, that have worked for them, and I want to share them with you because they've worked for not just one person, they've worked for lots of people they have sat down, they've found their why, everybody in the household is motivated, and all of a sudden they all come to an agreement that, hey, we could do this. Like, we've always thought our house was going to look like X, but we want a gym now, so how can we rework our home to make space for a gym? The first one is, and I kind of touched on this, consolidating different areas into one. You know, in my house, I had storage in the garage, storage under the stairs, storage in the attic, and I've consolidated a lot of that to pretty much storage in the attic and under the stairs. And almost all of the stuff that was stored in the garage isn't going, there's going to be some, but it's not all going to be stored there again. So, and I've had people who, one person had a guest bedroom that just over time became where they stored stuff. You know, there's where the Christmas decorations ended up, and that's where, you know, extra clothes ended up, and that's where their wedding dress ended up. And then also, in addition to that, they had a nice big utility room where their laundry was, and all of the shelves that were down there became storage for the same thing. So what they did was they said, hey, I'm going to take this extra room and I'm going to take the storage in the laundry room, I'm going to get rid of a lot of this stuff, and then I'm going to consolidate what's left over. And all of a sudden, instead of trying to clear a corner of a room, they found themselves with an entire room open up. And I've seen people move the stuff from the laundry room upstairs. You know, when I was growing up, some of my earliest memories of my grandpa and my uncle were they had downstairs in their basement, they had a room that had, you know, it was the toy area for the kids, but my uncle cleared out a spot and he had a heavy bag and a bench and some weights and a speed bag. And I remember my grandpa and my uncle working out down there. And that's a great example of just consolidating storage and clearing up a lot bigger area than you thought. And I've heard more than one person talk about doing this, where they realize that they're like, hey, if we just kind of cram everything in one room, then we can open up another room for storage. Another huge one, and this is a big one for people, and I understand that some people can't do this. So there was a time in my life where I liked my cars. I had a 350Z the first year they came out. I had an FJ Cruiser the first year they came out. Luckily, I'm past all of that. I had my car time and it was fun, and I had the motorcycles and all that, and I wouldn't have dreamed of parking those things anywhere except for in my garage. And if you've got a car that you pay a lot of money for, and I get it, you're gonna park it in your garage. But a lot of people, we could probably park our cars outside the garage. Now here in Illinois, that causes a couple of problems. It's a pain in the butt in the wintertime to go out and trudge through the snow and scrape off the snow and ice. I get it. Having your car, especially if it's an attached garage, in the garage is great. But I can't tell you how many people I've talked to who all of a sudden, working out and getting in shape and losing weight or getting stronger, or whatever their why is so much more important than not having to scrape off the windows in the wintertime. And all of a sudden, especially when the whole home is bought in, you go, well, we've got a 2-car garage. We could at least park one of the cars outside, right? And then that opens up half the garage. Or like here, I've got a 2-car garage. You just park both cars outside. I don't have 2 cars anymore, but I used to have a roommate, and at one point we were like, hey, let's just move both cars out of the garage and we'll both park outside. So I know that's weird for some people, and folks who live in climates like Arizona where the sun is absolutely gonna fry your car if you keep, I get it, not everybody can do that. But I think it's an important question to ask yourself honestly is, do we really need to park our cars in the garage? And back to, I'm gonna harp on this a lot, back to finding your why. If your why is compelling, all of a sudden answering that question is really easy. It's like, well, of course, parking my car outside is a solution because my health, my why is much more important. I talked last episode about getting rid of my headaches. I would have parked my car 4 blocks away to get rid of those headaches. My why was so much stronger than my desire to keep my car inside my garage. So I think I've beaten that dead horse enough, and you guys get the idea. So many people that I've talked to go, well, I guess we don't need to park our cars in the garage, do we? We can use it for something else. And that opens up a whole lot of space. Here's another one that works for a lot of people once you get, and this is why I started the episode with get the whole family on board. A lot of people, especially in homes, have a formal living room that you never use. It's there for some, like, I don't know why, no offense if you like your formal living room. I'm not sure why people have them. You've got your nice couches you never sit on, you never go in them. It's an extra room to clean. They're usually coated in a layer of dust. Maybe you've got a piano in there that you never play. And if you use your formal living room, great. But I would tell you that most people that I know that have a formal living room spend little to no time in there. Same thing with a formal dining room, right? So we all eat in our kitchens, we eat in the family room, we eat in the shared space in the big open, like I've got my kitchen's right there, my dining room table's right here. So I don't have one, but I would eat here. I eat all my meals actually right where I'm sitting right now. And I think that formal living room is a vestige of times gone by when you used to have people over and that you would get dressed up to have the pastor over for Sunday dinner and you would retire to the formal, like I get that. If you do that, that's awesome. But I have talked to so many people where they get, as soon as they get, and it's usually only one person in the house, and I don't mean to be weird about this, but usually the guys are like, yeah, we don't need the formal living room, and the wife is like, but I want my formal living room. And sometimes it's the other way. I don't want to be stereotypical, but it's usually one person who wants that formal living room, and the other one's like, oh, I guess we get a formal living room. So if you both can agree that a gym is important, all of a sudden, that formal living room that you don't use, that guest bedroom for guests that you've never had before, right? Everybody knows people that have a guest bedroom for maybe someday kind of Aunt Sally's gonna fly in from California and visit, and Aunt Sally's gonna want to stay in a hotel room, guys. So if you don't have guests a lot, maybe look at the guest bedroom. But a lot of people have rooms in their home that are just there because they're supposed to be there. And the two that I see most often are guest bedrooms and formal living rooms, where people just have them just to have them. So ask yourselves as a family, what's more important? Having a formal living room that we don't use, or having a guest bedroom for the guests that we have once a year? Or is having a place that we're gonna use on an almost daily basis that's gonna make our lives better in every other way, right? Because consider what training at home does for you. It saves you time from going to the gym. It improves your life in almost every single way. You're gonna sleep better, you're gonna feel better, you're gonna lose weight, we don't need to go into that. You guys know, if you're watching this, you're thinking about building a home gym, you already know why you build a home gym. But if you really think about what's more important, maybe clearing out one of those rooms. And I did one of the most read articles on GymCrafter.com is it safe to build a home gym on the second floor? And I'll give you the short answer. Absolutely. I'm from a time where people put king-size water beds on the second floor. You cannot put, and for those of you who don't know what a water bed is, look it up. They don't sell them anymore, I don't think. These things are beds filled with water. They weigh thousands of pounds. You almost would have to try to put a home gym bigger than a water bed. So check with your contractor, check with a structural engineer. I'm not a structural engineer. I don't know if your home's built to code, but odds are, and check out the article on GymCrafter.com if you're interested, odds are you can put a gym on the second floor of your home. So a lot of people don't even think about that. They've got a third bedroom where their kid has moved out and now it's a shrine to that kid. They just never, well, when Junior comes home, I got news for you. If Junior hasn't come home and spent the night in the last 5 years, Junior's probably not gonna need that bedroom or care that it's not their bedroom anymore. So it's okay to build a gym on the second floor. It really is. So think about those spaces in your home that aren't used, that are just kind of there because you thought they should be there. And that's a great way to do that. The last couple are outside. I follow a couple people online. My friend Jameson, there's a metalworking guy. Gosh darn it, I forgot his name. I'll put a graphic up. These guys train outside, and they've got these little half tire things with sledgehammers, and they've got a gym outside, and they've got people in California. They have their complete weight training set outside. Vulcan, I believe it's Vulcan Strength, makes some great outdoor rated chrome bumper plates that work great for training outside. If you get a good quality stainless steel barbell, if you're in a dry climate in Arizona, like we talked about, you can put a gym outside. It doesn't have to be in your home. Maybe you can put a bench and some weights outside on the back porch, or maybe clear out a spot in the backyard that you don't use. So training outside is something I know a lot of people don't think about. Here in Illinois, that's not an opportunity for me. The best I can do is I put a screen door in my garage. That makes me feel like I'm training outside when it's nice out, but training outside is definitely an option. And if you do live in an area like this, now I live in a townhouse, so I can't do this, but you could build a shed. My parents have a shed that is more than amply spaced for a gym, right? And you can build that shed out there. You can run power to it. You can just do solar power if you want. My parents have lighting inside that's all solar. You can do a lot of cool stuff, especially if you don't use your yard for other things. You can put it, and that will keep it so that you don't have to do any of the clearing out. If you want to hang into that stuff that you've had more than a year and you're like, hey Tim, you're an idiot, I'm not throwing that stuff out, just build a shed. So there's a couple of outdoor options as well. I could go on and on and on about this. Like I said, I've helped a ton of people build home gyms, and they always have to start by finding space. So I've got story after story of creative ways that people have found space in their homes. So hopefully those tips help you kind of know how to clear out a space and maybe give you some ideas of space that is, maybe not utilized in the best possible manner that you could repurpose for a home or a garage or a basement gym. So with that said, let me give you an update on my gym build. I've got the entire garage is cleared out with the exception of my Titan Power Rack, which I'm selling. That might surprise a lot of you who have followed me for a while. It's one of my favorite pieces of gear in my gym. I've got some stuff coming. I've partnered with some brands for the first time ever, and the stuff they're sending me is gigantic, and I can't fit all of it in addition to my power rack. So I'm selling the power rack and to make space. But that's about the only big thing that's left in my gym right now. Everything else is my living room. But so I've got the gym painted. Thank you everybody on Instagram. I did a poll. I narrowed it down to a couple of colors, and I went with a color called Devotion, I think it's called. It's kind of a darker green. It matches the GymCrafter green colors. I'm really happy with it. I went with flooring from Freedom Fitness Equipment. My friend Ashton, who runs the company, is amazing. He has gone from just being a pre-owned fitness equipment dealer to one of the largest flooring distributors in the country to now having his own brand of flooring called Hammerclad. He's got every different type of flooring you could want. He's got 4x6 mats, he's got rolls, he's got puzzle pieces, he's got new, he's got blemished. So I went with blemished flooring. It came in within a week. It saved me like 60%. I paid exactly what I would have paid for horse stall mats, and I'm gonna do a flooring episode specifically because there's a lot of nuance to flooring and there's a lot of caveats, and everybody wants you to use stall mats, and I don't think stall mats are right. Please hold your hateful comments for down the road. Every time I talk about stall mats, the fangirls come out, and it's like I just insulted your mom and tried to date your sister at the same time. I don't know why people are so defensive about stall mats, but trust me, there are better options. And now that stall mat prices have come up, and people like Ashton, and I'll put a link to Ashton's flooring site down below, have flooring options that are basically the same price, but are much better for your health, easier to install, nicer looking, all that kind of fun stuff. So I went with something called blemished flooring. If I was to bring you into my gym right now and the flooring's about half done, you would never in a million years look down and go, oh, that's blemished flooring. If I don't point out what's blemished about it, you would never know. So talk about a great savings. I think I saved like 60% off of what I would have spent if I'd have bought new flooring. So the flooring is mostly in, and after I get that done, I'm going to do a couple of aesthetic things to the gym, but then I've got to start moving the gear back out there. So I just finished doing everything we talked about in this episode. I made a space. Now what I'm going to do for the stuff that I couldn't move out of the garage, and I'll show you this when I finally do a tour in there, but there's some garage stuff that just needs to stay in the garage, right? You can't clear everything out. So I couldn't get rid of my garbage cans. I don't have another place for my grill. I don't have another place for my bicycle. So there's some stuff that I have to keep in there. So I'm gonna segment off a portion. I'm calling it an indoor shed, but I'm segmenting off a portion with some shelves, and then I'm gonna close in the sides of the shelves that are facing the gym so it looks nice and finished. Because I do train clients here. I am going to be opening up the gym as what's called a micro gym, partnering with a company called GoRx. Go check out GoRx online. They're kind of like an Airbnb for home gyms. If you're traveling and your hotel gym stinks, which there's a 99.9% chance that your hotel gym stinks, go on GoRx.com and you can actually find a really nice home gym that you can go to. You can book what they call rack time. So it's really cool. It's such a great idea. More people need to know about it, but I'm doing that with the gym. So I'm kind of segmenting off a little area. So I think I figured out a little bit over 3/4 of my 2-car garage is now going to be devoted to gym space. And that's up from about 1/3, really almost just 1/4 of the garage space before. So I can't wait for you guys to see it. That's an update of where I am. I'm going to keep releasing these on Monday as I get the manual labor portion finished. And I tell you what, I woke up yesterday. Yesterday was Sunday. I took the day off. I take all Sundays off, but I woke up and I really felt like I'd been hit like a truck. So I needed the rest, and I'm almost done. I've got to finish laying the floor today after I edit this podcast and get it posted. I'm really looking forward to that because that's the last kind of manually labor intensive, if that's a word or phrase, portion of it, and I'll be able to go faster. So long way of saying, as I'm getting the hard stuff done, I might be able to release some additional podcast episodes as things go. I really want to document this as the process goes on. So like I said, I owe you guys an episode on how to sell your fitness equipment and get the most value from it, which I think is an important thing. I've had a lot of you reach out to me about that. I definitely want to do a flooring episode because picking the right flooring is critical to a safe home gym. Safety is the number one concern with flooring, and it's the number one reason I don't like stall mats, but I'll talk about that in the flooring episode. So hopefully I'll have some of those episodes out for you. I did get a new microphone, so hopefully you can't even see it, but it is echoey in the gym, but hopefully the new mic will help with that. Again, thank you guys for hanging with me in that first episode. I tried to process out the echo as much as I could. I just couldn't. So that's enough rambling for episode 2 of the GymCrafter podcast. Thank you guys for hanging with me. I really appreciate it. Thank you for liking and sharing the first episode. Hopefully the second one is as valuable to you. Please share it with your friends. Please let people know about the channel. I'm really trying to put out, I don't think personally that I can do a good job of helping you all build garage gyms if it's all product reviews. Now, I've got more product reviews coming, and gear reviews are what we all like to watch, but there's a lot of other stuff that goes into building a home gym, and that's why I started this podcast, and that's why I do other videos like the last 5-Minute Friday that I've done. Last 2 5-Minute Fridays I've done have to do with just making your gym a better place to be. So hopefully you guys are liking that. And let me know what you like, let me know what you don't like. You can email me directly at tim@gymcrafter.com. You can shame me publicly in the comments. I answer all the comments. I don't mind public criticism. Like I said last time, I'm a public figure. I'm a big boy. I can handle it. If you're snarky, I am going to be snarky back, so just a warning. And if you've got a legitimate adult content or comment or conversation you want to have, I'm happy to have that as well. So thanks again, everybody. I really, really appreciate it. The channel is growing faster than I ever thought it could. The traction on the podcast has been mind-blowing. Your comments over on Instagram. Anyway, I could go on and on. Thank you guys so much for following, for trusting me to help you do this. And until the next episode, I'm Tim with GymCrafter.